I didn't rush when the message came through. I finished the sentence I was in the middle of, closed my notebook, and apologized for stepping out. The hallway was bright in that way offices prefer, nothing to hide, everything exposed. I remember thinking that it felt too ordinary for something urgent. HR's office door was open. That should have warned me. My parents sat side by side on the guest chairs, angled slightly toward the desk like they belonged there. My mother's hands were folded, her smile fixed and precise, the one she used in public when she wanted to appear reasonable. My father stood as soon as he saw me, as if the movement itself were an accusation. He dropped a folder onto the desk. It landed flat, loud. "She embezzled company money," he said. HR didn't look at me. She looked at the folder, then at the clock on the wall, as though timing mattered more than truth. "You'll want to take a seat," she said. "The police are on the way." My mother leaned forward. "You can make this very easy," she said, voice light, almost kind. "You'll sign today, unless you want to be finished." The words were familiar. Finished. It was what my father said when I was 16 and wanted to move out. When I was 22 and chose a job he hadn't arranged. When I stopped answering calls immediately, I sat. Not because I was told to, but because sitting slowed things down. "For what, exactly?" I asked. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't fear. It was a request for shape. Accusations without edges had been my parents' specialty. They relied on the blur to exhaust you. My father's jaw tightened. "You know what you did." HR cleared her throat. "There are discrepancies in departmental funds. We'll let the police walk us through next steps." The room felt smaller as we waited. My parents filled the silence with certainty. They spoke about my irresponsibility, my ingratitude, my long history of pushing boundaries. HR nodded at intervals, taking notes that weren't notes. I watched the pen move without touching paper. I didn't interrupt. I didn't explain that the funds in question were part of a pre-approved vendor advance, documented across 3 systems. I didn't say that I'd already flagged the accounting software glitch weeks earlier. I'd learned, growing up, that explanation offered too early became confession. The knock came softly. The door opened. A uniformed officer stepped in, rein still clinging to the brim of his cap. He introduced himself, asked for names. My father said his, crisp and loud. The officer paused, not dramatically. Just long enough to look up. "Oh," he said. "I know that name." It wasn't recognition like a movie, no gasp, no hand to the radio, just a shift. A recalibration. My father noticed it too. I saw the flicker of irritation. Then the quick attempt to cover it with authority. The officer asked a few questions. Neutral ones. He asked to see the folder. He asked HR for documentation. He asked about the internal audit timeline. As he read, the room changed again. The officer's posture loosened, then straightened. He asked me for my ID. I handed it over. He asked me to confirm my role and tenure. I did. He asked my father how he'd come into possession of internal financial documents. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. "Well," my father said, "as her parent." The officer raised a hand, gentle but final. "That's not how this works." He explained, calmly, that the materials in the folder included confidential records improperly obtained. That making a false report was itself a serious matter. That the alleged discrepancies aligned with a known software issue flagged in internal memos HR had received. HR's face went pale. She looked at her notes again, as if hoping they would rearrange themselves. The officer turned to me. "At this point," he said, "you're not being accused of anything. You're free to go." He didn't look at my parents when he said it. He didn't need to. There was no apology, no outburst. My father stared at the desk as though it had betrayed him. My mother's smile finally slipped, revealing something thin and sharp underneath. I stood. The act felt heavier than it should have, like lifting a weight I'd been carrying longer than I realized. Outside, the rain had stopped. The parking lot smelled clean, scrubbed. I sat in my car for a moment before starting it, letting the quiet settle. Work didn't return to normal. It rarely does. There were meetings, reviews, a careful untangling of processes that should have been checked sooner. HR avoided my eyes for weeks. Eventually, there was an apology that sounded like policy. My parents didn't call. When they did, months later, the conversation stayed on the surface. Weather, health, neutral ground, they never mentioned that day. Neither did I. Integrity, I learned, isn't reclaimed in grand gestures. It comes back in small, deliberate refusals to sign, to rush, to accept someone else's version of you. Some fractures don't heal. They simply stop bleeding. And sometimes, that's enough.